Hey everyone, this is Ryan, the homestead consultant, and I'm up in our permaculture orchard today at the Love Farm. I wanted to give you a tour and talk with you a little bit about the different systems that we've set up. It's a little bit different than my typical videos, so you're going to get a tour and me talking about why we set up different systems the way that we have, as opposed to an instructional video. So I hope you enjoy the tour and I hope you enjoy some of the nuggets that are embedded in it. We planted this orchard about 4 years ago here at the Love Farm, and I used what I was calling at the time micro swales or trencher swales. I had a trencher rented right after we put these trees in, and I put these little swales in. You can see them here. They actually worked really well and helped the trees survive. So we started with about 40 trees that I got on clearance at Walmart. That just happened to be the type of trees that I wanted to plant in the orchard. And we got them for $3 a piece. And I got all kinds of hate messages on YouTube talking about how they'll never survive, they'll never do well. And I think we had about 3 of them die off. The rest have done amazing. If you want more information on why and how those have done so well, go over to, just look for my video on how to plant trees the right way, and you'll figure out how you can actually use old trees, or clearance trees, in a manner that will do well. And even trees that maybe were planted right, potted right, you want to be able to use those or plant those in a specific way, and that video will really help you out on that. This is the new swale that I've put in recently. I'm calling this a mini swale. With these swales that I was talking about earlier, kind of the trencher or trench swales, they're a little bit of a hazard because they're very hard to see, and you can step in them and they're about the right size for your foot to sink in and get a twisted ankle. Beyond that, they've worked well, but these are a pretty major upgrade, and the way that this one has been put in is going to allow us to still ideally mow along it and mow in between all of these trees. So these aisles will be able to be mowed, but then we're also intending to bring chicken tractors through. So we can bring chicken tractors through in the aisles in between the rows of trees. So rows of trees are on either side, and then the middle I'm calling the aisle. So we're actually going to be taking chicken tractors through this aisle, and that's going to mean that they can basically deposit their poop on the uphill side, and then the nutrient, hopefully a lot of it will just get deposited straight in the soil, especially with some of the things that we're doing for the soil, some of the plantings and things. And then that's going to, what doesn't stay in place or get in there, it's going to run downhill to these swales. And then as it hits the swales, the water that is carrying that nutrient is going to spread out to either side. And then it's going to mix with the wood chips, help break down the wood chips, and create better and better soil, as well as better and better water infiltration. So that's one of the methods or tactics that we're going to be using to improve this system as we go. If you want to see how I made this swale and all the ins and outs so you can do your own, I've got a video on that. If you want to see how we're improving the soil below it and improving the water infiltration into this soil, I've got a video on that. You can look up my entire video series on swales and how to build them and different aspects of them. You might notice that I'm running a hose right here. This is running at full blast right now, and it's been doing so for about an hour and a half. Basically, I'm trying to test the infiltration just with a general input of that you would usually see of water from a typical hose. And I'll explain how this hose works in a minute. But you can see all kinds of bubbling here. See if I can get that on camera. And that's actually the soil taking in that water and letting air back up. Like I said, this has been on for at least an hour and a half, and there's water to about here and water to about here, and that's all the water that's really spread out in here so far, meaning that we're getting really good infiltration. of the water into the soil, which is exactly what we want. So when we get a heavy rain, we're going to get a lot of water rushing down into here and then just basically filling back up to the top of the mound here, and ideally infiltrating as much as possible, but some of that is going to end up running over. Recently I planted this swale out with all kinds of things. They're hard to see on video because there is so much grass and greenery coming in here, but these are raspberries, and I've probably got about 50 or 60 raspberries through this area. And then we have a blackberry here that I've been working on cultivating. It is a thornless blackberry that started itself on the property, so it has some unique properties that we like and want to propagate, and so I'm making some more, hopefully eventually for sale. And then you can also see here, again a little hard in the grass, but that's an elderberry. There's another one and another one, and they're just thick through here. They're all doing really, really well. I haven't found a single dead elderberry, and I put about 200 through here just in cuttings. So I took cuttings from my elderberries that I had to prune anyways and put them in here, and they're doing excellent. Back over here, you can see these shoots that are sticking up out of the grass, and these are blackberry, and you can see they're just starting to bud out, but they're very healthy. So all these will then propagate themselves. They'll send up new shoots each year. And from this tree to this tree, what we're actually going to do is I'll put in a few T-posts along the way and then put a cattle panel on those T-posts. So you kind of put it down like that so the T-posts go through the bottom holes, and then you fold it up, and then you just have to tie it on the top of the T-post. Usually I use 3 T-posts for a 16-foot run, and then I tie it at the top, and it is the perfect blackberry trellis. I have a video on that if you want to check that out. It was one of my earliest on this channel. So go ahead and find that if you want to see exactly how that works. Another thing that people may be interested in our orchard here is the water system. So you can see that's still running, and that's coming from these tanks up here at the very top of the hill. This is the highest point on the property, and what we did is we actually buried and trenched in a line all the way back, and you can see that mound there. I'll zoom in. That mound is the original root cellar to the home, and just past that is a hand dug well. And so that hand dug well, I put a half horsepower well pump inside of that and hooked that to the trench line that comes up to here. And so that not only provides water up to here, but the same line, because of this being at the highest point on the property, then has pressure or back pressure going back that way. And then I've got a faucet or hydrant there, another one where we raise the chicks, where we have the brooder over there, and another one in the garden and where the egg layer chickens are. So we can use that one to water both the chickens and the garden. That can be done passively, which we can just have the water basically drain back downhill to those locations. But that is a little bit slow. So the other thing we can do is inside the root cellar there, I've got a power switch for the pump. And so when we want to increase the pressure out to the field or the garden, we can actually turn that pump on, and it significantly increases the pressure to our growing spaces and helps us water things more quickly. So that's the water system in a nutshell. I've got a video on that as well, so you can kind of see how we have that set up. We're collecting water both from the roof of the home as well as from, you can see a little HVAC unit on the side of the house. So we're actually collecting water from the condensate from the HVAC units as well as from the roof of the house, and then groundwater as well, since we're using that hand dug well. So out here we've got some plants that you may find interest in what we've planted, what's growing, and how well it is doing. Here we have comfrey. So I've got the what's called true comfrey, or a comfrey that will reproduce by seed, which is uncommon but is the original variant, and I've really appreciated being able to use that. So I've planted that under each tree around the orchard, one on either side. Some made it, some didn't. This one's clearly doing pretty well. It's early spring, and we've got what looks to be about 4 plants coming up there, so I will probably divide those and continue to plant them elsewhere on the property. We have several varieties of trees. We do have a few peaches, this being one of them, that one, and that one, and that one. So we've got 4 peaches. Those were mostly opportunity buys. Peaches tend to be kind of on the edge of the zone where they do well here. But we've also got apples. I believe this one is a Wolf River apple. And there's 3 types of apple, well, 4 types of apples that we've planted here, but 3 are the ones that I recommend. There's a Wolf River, I believe that one there is a Liberty, which are probably the best growing here in Tennessee. And I believe this one is a Wine Sap, and those are the 3 that I most recommend. The Liberty being first, the Wolf River being second, and the Wine Sap being third as far as hardiness and production in Tennessee. One of the issues that we are trying to resolve is this area or the land here itself is actually a bit acidic. That is likely from the land in general being acidic, and then also from this area being used for hay for many years. And when fertilizer is being used on an area, traditional fertilizer, you end up getting more and more acidic soil. And so it's just a little bit too acidic for our apple trees. And so one of the things that we're doing to remedy that is, as I build out these swales, on the bottom side of the swale, I'm putting in ash from some of the areas where we're clearing out old weed trees on the property. And so we're putting ash in to raise the pH of the soil, or to lower the acidity, or to raise the alkalinity, however you want to put that. There's a few different ways to phrase it, but we're putting ash on the bottom of this. And then when I put wood chips over the top of that, that's going to encourage worms and things to come up and start to bring that ash down to the roots of the trees, and to increase the alkalinity, or increase the pH of the soil, so that these apple trees do a little bit better. The plum trees and the pear trees are both doing very well. They don't seem to have any issue with slight alkalinity. Some more plants that we have in the soil here that are doing well and really helping us a lot are vetch. So you can see this plant is vetch. It is a leguminous, or a legume bean, like small bean producing plant that puts nitrogen back in the soil. And so when we mow through here, it basically chops it down and drops it onto the soil as a mulch and fertilizer. And then what's left under the ground with the roots is going to leave nitrogen nodules. Now that's the same with our clover. This is a red clover, which is kind of more purple in reality, but it's called a red clover. And then I just finished planting crimson clover as well, and white clover, which white clover stays a bit smaller and really doesn't need as much mowing. But these are a nitrogen fixer, just like the vetch that I just showed you. And so as we mow these, and it kills off roots, because if you kill off part of the top, you kill off part of the roots will shrink back. And when we do that, we'll leave more nitrogen nodules in the soil, and that will improve the quality of the soil over time. You can see the broom sage throughout here. Broom sage is an indication species, or an indicator species of acidic soil. And so that's part of what we're doing is increasing the alkalinity, or increasing the pH, which will tamp down the growth of the broom sage. I believe one of the reasons that is why broom sage grows in acidic soils, or the benefit that it brings, is it actually creates a very dry, very flammable stalk. And if you had a lot of broom sage in an area, and let's say a prairie fire caught, when that burns down, it will leave ash in the ground, which will actually balance out the pH. So it's actually a pretty incredible plant in that it fills a role or a void in nature where if you were to have a lot of it grow up and then you were to have prairie fires, it would actually neutralize the pH in the soil and allow other things to grow better. So that's a pretty neat plant and a neat bit of information. This is a wild lettuce plant. They are edible, but they're a bit bitter. But it's kind of cool to see there. They have a medicinal property of as they get larger, they have this kind of latex sap in them that can be boiled down as a natural pain reliever. You can see this. This is from a wild pear tree. It's a stump that we've been mowing down, and hopefully it will die off pretty soon here if we continue to mow it. But that's a good indication that pear trees will grow well in this area. So look for what's growing in your soils, and if you can, replicate that as far as your orchard is concerned, because you'll get a lot better growth out of it. These plants here are called yarrow, and these were growing wildly. These will stay smaller than a cultivated variety of yarrow, which we may bring in some. But I avoided mowing this area last fall to allow this yarrow to continue to grow, and we've kind of got it all over. So I'm going to try to continue to favor this a little bit so we get the yarrow flowers, but it's also a terrific medicinal that will grow natively and wildly. So keep an eye out for this. It's got a very unique leaf. See if we can get that on camera. So it's a very interesting, unique leaf, and it has a really pretty pungent smell. It can be made into tinctures or salves. Here's some more comfrey that I planted last year, so hopefully that plant will take off and do what it's supposed to. These trees were planted on contour because at the time I wasn't able to make swales to plant them into, and so I'm doing it a little bit backwards. You may notice that, but the typical way to do this is to make the swales and then plant the trees kind of on the top side of the berm. And instead what I've done is I've made the swales just behind the trees, but I did take kind of the forethought of planting the trees on contour so that we could make swales later after they had been planted if we wanted to, and that's what I'm working on doing. As we put additional swales in, so we'll put one here and here for each row of trees, we're going to be filling in those rows. So like I was showing you earlier, we've got raspberries, blackberries, elderberry, we'll probably do seaberry, gooseberry, currants, a lot of other things that I just don't have a lot of yet. The reason I've planted out so many of what I have already is that those are things that I've already started to cultivate on my own property, and I have enough of to start actually propagating and using in high numbers on the systems we have here, or on the swale that we have here. So that's why we've started with those, but I will expand into other things as well as we go. I'm probably going to be planting several mulberry trees in some of these gaps that I had left initially. I had left some of these gaps initially for nitrogen fixers, but I think I'm going to do most of my nitrogen fixers as herbaceous layer nitrogen fixers. So I've planted clover and vetch and other nitrogen fixing plants along here as well. We're doing daikon radish in here, which again, I've got a video on why and how that works, but they're a deep tap rooted radish that will leave high nutrient and nitrogen tubers in the ground that worms will then eat. So you essentially get all these amazing soil building tubers in the ground that will die off and give the worms food, give your plants food. So we're using the daikon radish or tillage radish as a way to do that. And that's going to help a lot. And then I've just finished planting this entire area with several types of clover that should also fill in here and help hold the wood chips here. And as nutrient runs down the hill, it'll help hold that there. With high nitrogen, that's going to help break down the carbon in the wood chips. And so we're going to dramatically increase the amount of organic matter from here down a ways into the soil. And we're also increasing, by putting these swales in, we're dramatically increasing the amount of moisture that is able to absorb into the soil instead of just running off downstream. So we were having issues with too much water collecting through here and then running at the house. We did some earthworks in this area and here, and then way over by the house as well, which has significantly improved the drainage in the area. And if you want to see that, you can go to my secondary channel for Love Farm TN is the secondary channel, and I've got all kinds of information about how I did these diversion ditches or diversion swales. And I actually planted those out today as well with radishes and clover to basically help induce infiltration of water into the soil as the water's running along, which will further reduce the amount of water and runoff we get in this area. So I hope you enjoyed the tour of our permaculture orchard and some of the little nuggets about how we do our water, why we're planting different plants, how the swale works, and things like that. Feel free to check out all my other videos that I mentioned on deeper dives into how to make your own swale, how to plant it out, things like that. Please subscribe to my videos if you're enjoying them and getting something out of them. I really mostly do evergreen content that is extremely helpful for you to build your homestead or your permaculture systems. And I don't have a whole bunch of fluff content that you're going to get harassed by and getting notifications about all the time. So please consider subscribing. I think maybe like 3% of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribing. So I've got a lot of people watching them, but not enough people subscribing. Please help me out. It would do me a big favor to have you subscribe to my videos and to like them. I'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts on what we're doing here, questions, anything else you have. Leave them in the comments. I reply to all of them. Thanks so much for watching. Again, this is Ryan from homesteadconsultant.com. You can find all my information there.